Yeah, so my sister lives out there, so I stayed at her house. So I just came home last night
Nice.
because I was like, I want to be home today to for this, just to
Mhm.
be like, like clean my room, clean the house and just be ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was
Yeah.
hot out
Nice.
there.
Cool.
So I was like, I'm gonna be on there with like all red but no,
I like that area. I'm looking to, like, if I ever buy a house, I like how spacious like everything is. Were you
yeah, it's
see
nice
your
out there.
neighbor? Yeah, for a couple of miles. It's like my goal. Or me and Cindy were talking last time. I was like, maybe Kanye West had it right by moving to like Montana. And she's like, well, I'm gonna move to Ohio. Cindy said she's gonna move to Ohio because that's where Dave Chappelle's at.
Really?
That's what I said. I
Oh,
didn't know that either. I did not know that
I thought
about
you
him.
loved Colorado.
Huh?
I thought you loved Colorado.
No, I do. I think Colorado is like Iowa and Montana to people from LA. It's like the middle of nowhere. And so I feel great out here for now because people are starting to catch shit. They're like, oh, it is pretty chill. And it's just a lot of people are moving here. So it's starting to
Yeah.
get like a city, like a big city, So I'm just like, oh, maybe in a few years, I'd like to go somewhere a little bit more
Even when I went out
chill.
there, like it was like over like 5 years ago to Colorado when I fell in love with it. And then
Mm-hmm.
everybody we met wasn't from there. Everybody was
Mm-hmm.
from California, especially.
Mm-hmm.
But they
Mm-hmm.
were from out of state. But they were also saying like that their properties were like increasing in so much value because so many people were going there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So I understand.
So
Yeah, like it's probably starting to feel like LA now, like just so many people.
yeah, it's not as crowded yet, but I feel like it'll start to get there. And
Yeah.
I'm just not used to that no more. So it's like a lot of I liked it when we first came out here, it was pretty dead. And then like it caught on so quickly. But
Yeah.
I love it still. I really, really like it out here. I'd like to live out here for a few more years for sure. But yeah.
Well, yeah, you make it cool out there
Oh,
with all
thanks.
the pictures you post too.
Huh, I make it seem
I'm
like
like,
there's this
oh,
one video that my brother made where he was making fun of like, well, it was not making fun of, but it was like LA, Colorado, LA, and it was so funny. What is that video, Jess? Is that like a clip? Remember which one I'm talking about? Oh, never mind. Well, and it was when it's Colorado, it's like a bunch of people hiking. And then like if it's LA, it's like a bunch of cholos. So it's just like it was like
oh my God.
a comparison thing. And yeah, I'm like, please don't tell people that we're cool over here. Because people, I'm like, I feel like I'm making it cool.
You are making it. Okay, yeah. So whenever you guys are ready, because I know you guys have your
Okay,
stuff to
cool.
do too. But yeah, no, thank you for having me back.
Yay, thank you for coming back. So welcome back everybody to the Primas podcast. Thanks for being here. We have a super special guest. Before I introduce her, Jessica, what's good, Prima? How's your week going?
It's going good. Look at our setup week number 5, and we still we can't commit to a background. I don't know how people do it when they're just like, this is our background. And are consistent. We're not there yet. I like how we keep changing it up.
Yeah.
Maybe that's going to be our thing. We have a different background every
It's
time.
always going to be different.
Maybe next week you're recording the mountains and I'm gonna record at the beach with no service. Let's see how that goes.
I would love to. I know. I don't think I'd get service either. But good, we're experimenting. I think we're going to keep experimenting till we get it. But our special guest, she was with us for season 2. She is one of our life coaches in the world of finance. And so welcome back to the Primas podcast, Mariela. Yay!
I'm so happy to be here. I was so
Thanks
excited.
for being here.
Well, with your background, I think it'll keep people coming back, right? Because it's like, ooh, what do they have this week?
I know.
What are they gonna do? Yeah.
Besides the awesome conversation,
Yeah.
of course.
I like that,
thank you guys. And I definitely had a chance to get to know you since I was here. So yeah, you guys we're tight now. Yeah, I've had a chance
We're
to work
family.
with
Yes.
each of you and get to know you. So yeah, thank you for having me back.
So thank you for coming back. And that's what we wanted to open with, Mariela, because Jessica and I both were like, okay, this person knows what she's doing. This is an area in our life that we want to clean up. And so I wanted to kind of start. Jess, you've been working with her a little bit longer than I have. So what have your experiences been? What have you gained?
Yeah, so shortly after our original meet, I did reach out to Mariela. I was like, no, dude, like I'm being serious about my finances. I finally need to like get to it because I didn't like living paycheck to paycheck, or I didn't like not having a savings account. So shortly after, yeah, this will be our 4-month session, correct? And our final?
Right?
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're gonna graduate.
I know. And
Mhm.
I want to talk about my experience because it really, like I wrote down notes and like how beneficial it was working with you. And you were according to my budget, I was able to fit you in for 4 months. And then can I just go over like this little things, like my little goals were? Can I go over like 2 little goals?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So the first one I had was like, I went to you because I wanted to pay off my credit card debt and to start a savings at the same time. So I liked how you used that. You had said a quote very early on, like, I can't build when I'm like in a hole, And I feel like I've been in this hole for a few years and it never really sinks in like that. And I never felt any pressure. Like, oh shit, like, no. And in 4 months, I feel so less stressed about my finances because you put things into perspective for me, things that I've never been able to view my finances prior, because I feel like no one really teaches us that. No one sits down and is like, hey, Jess, like, let's pay attention to this, this, and that. And like, I remember in our first month, I went through my bank statements and I canceled like 4 subscriptions. And I'm like, I don't even use these. I didn't even know they had like increased that much. One had doubled. Remember I told you from like when I originally subscribed to like when I started noticing. So it's like paying attention to every single cent. And as tedious as that may sound, I think that was like a gimmick of yours, like that enticed me. I was like, oh shit, I really wasn't paying attention to my money.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's one of the things that's the scary part of starting to work on your personal finance is that knowing that you're going to have to look, knowing that you're going to have to go through your bank statements or your credit card statements and see where your money has been going. And it's always a surprise, if you don't budget, if you just live your life, day to day and paycheck to paycheck, you live to spend, and the money's gone before you get it. So it's shocking. And that's why, I don't like to meet every week or every
Mhm.
2 weeks. I like to let that time go by. Like I like the monthly, um, meeting monthly just because I like to give people time to process and to deal and then to meet with me. And I try to calm you down and I try to make it seem like it's normal, unfortunately, but we're meeting to change that. But yeah, I think I was surprised that you reached out, because I said, oh, maybe she's just saying that because, we're on the podcast.
Mhm.
But you sure did reach out a few days later. And it's been so cool working with you just because you're so open to it and you want to change. You're ready. Like that's what you kept saying from the beginning. I'm ready for this. And you've been doing your homework and you've been working at it. You've been putting in the time
Mhm.
outside of our meetings, which I
Yeah.
think is the most important part.
Mhm.
Meeting with me is easy, but once we're not face to face, it's what you do in between.
Mhm.
So you've definitely put in the work, and I think that's why you've seen so many positive changes in your life
Mhm.
financially
Correct.
because
Mhm.
of just the hard work you've been doing. So
Yeah.
yeah, kudos to
So
you.
Mariela,
Hmm.
yeah. And Mariela is a finance coach. Just for anyone tuning back in, please check out our season 2 finance talk with Mariela. We get into more of like the basics of why it's important to look into your finances. And we wanted to bring her back because, as we said, we both wanted more from Mariela. We wanted to learn, and we knew we were missing that part of our finances. We wanted to start organizing them. And I started to work with Mariela a month ago. So I'm a month in. And then I went to one of your sessions where you had like a whole group of women and you guys were talking about finances. So in both those sessions, I felt very empowered to even just be there. Even like my intro, when I was telling you about all of my embarrassing debt, it's not embarrassing, but you know, when I was like, just, you're like, where are you at in life? And I'm like, I'm here. But I was so relieved. I was like, yes, finally, I'm going to work on this. And so, yeah, I just feel, it just feels so good. I feel like it's an important part of self-care, you know, to look into your finances and to be on top of them. And so for me, it was very liberating because I'm like, I'm finally taking a step towards figuring this out. It's like therapy, you know, it's just like when you make that first connection, it's just like, oh, thank God. Like it's gonna, you know, I'm gonna put in work, but I'm ready. And like you said about Jessica, when you're ready, it like speeds up the process, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, for you have to be ready because you're investing not only money, but you're investing time. And if
Mhm.
you're not ready, then you're not gonna do those things, you know? Um, so yeah,
Mhm.
you guys are both ready. And I think everybody that I've been fortunate to work with has been ready. Nobody has, if it's coaching, I ask people to commit for 4 months. And I was thinking, oh, I'll have some dropouts, I've never had anybody drop out. So when you're ready,
Awesome.
you're ready.
That's
And just that
Mhm.
awesome.
feeling, like how you
Hmm.
said, like a weight is lifted, it's all positive. So
Mhm.
you want to continue because it's good stuff. And it's just a beginning. I mean, it's a process and there's a long way to go, but the journey is so worth it.
Yeah, I feel like now that I have a plan or a goal, it's so easy to just do that, but then also it's like I needed to talk to you to do it because all the steps you're telling me to take, I'm like, oh, okay, but I don't know. I don't know why we feel like I need a coach. Like even with like personal training when I'm at the gym,
Hmm.
I like getting like personal trainers. They set me up with the plan, but then after a few months, I'm like, oh, I'd love to get another person just to switch it up. I don't know why we need that like motivation, you know, like that push from someone else. So
Or that
yeah,
guidance, because it's areas that
guidance, guidance.
we necessarily haven't mastered ourselves, and we feel like we trust you enough to be like, okay, well, you can guide us in the right direction, and everyone's path is so different. So I like it. I like the
Yeah, and it's
guidance.
just like it's a support system too. I
Hmm.
mean, I think that
Mhm.
in life, people need people. We need people rooting us on. And sometimes it's just kind of like I've heard a lot of people say, surround yourself with people who kind of have similar interests or similar goals to what you have
Mhm.
so that you can stay the course and stay focused.
Hmm.
And I think that's why sometimes people lean on coaches because they don't have anybody in their life who has done what they want to do, or who they trust, like you just said, Jessica. Um, and yeah, because even a coach, you're not just gonna get anybody. You have to really like talk to them and see how you feel because it's personal finance. Like it's people, somebody's gonna really look into they're gonna look in your life. They're gonna see how
Hmm.
you spend your money. And it's kind of like you gotta feel comfortable with that.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I get it.
So I
Mhm.
wanted to I wanted to bring up, Mariela, one thing that you mentioned a lot is to build an emergency fund.
Mhm.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Why do you think it's important to create, first of all, what's an emergency fund? Like if you can give us examples, and then why is it important to have an emergency fund?
Yeah, so an emergency fund it's just like a savings account. It's not an investment like where you have it in a brokerage account. It's money that is readily available. That's the main thing about an emergency fund. It's liquid. If you need it in 3 days, it's easy to get, it's available. Um, So that's an emergency fund. It's just a cushion. And normally, what's recommended is to have 3 to 6 months of your basic essential, like 3 to 6 months of savings to cover your basic needs, your essentials, in case you lose a job, in case you have a medical emergency that takes you out of work and you don't have disability insurance. Um, so it would be to cover that, a true emergency. It's not like, oh, I'm short this month because I went on vacation, so now I need to get money from my emergency fund to cover my rent. That's not what it's for. So for me, the main thing is why an emergency fund is it keeps you out of debt, which is the main thing. If something happens in my life, and I need a big sum of money, I don't have to rely on a credit card,
Mhm.
which a lot of people do. And that's why so many people are in debt. So it's definitely, it brings a lot of peace, because you're not worried. You could go through your life and live it and not ever be worried about, you don't have to live in fear of something happening, because if something happens, you're okay. You have this cushion there. So yeah, it's just to cover your butt in case anything happens. But also, a lot of times people focus on that. Like, oh, what if something bad happens? It's there. But I like to also look at it from the other angle where it's like, oh, it's also something that can provide you opportunities in life. You know, if you have this emergency fund, you can maybe quit a job that's toxic. You can leave a bad situation in your life and start again. You can pursue your dreams, your passions, if you have this cushion, because you're gonna be okay.
Mhm.
That's what it's for. So yeah, it's stability also, but yeah, so that's what an emergency fund is to me.
I wanted to mention that when we were meeting, you were like, an emergency fund isn't um tires, because we know when we need to replace our tires, or like an oil change. So it made me think like, oh, I kind of looked at those things like I didn't plan for them. I know that they're always going to come up, that I need tires for my car, or that I need a oil change, or all of these things. But you were like, those are not emergencies, because you know that they're coming up. And I needed that level of breakdown of like, oh, it's not okay. I'm like, yeah, no, I didn't think it was. And so I I think it's important to know. And Jess, if you can give some examples too of like what we thought
Yeah,
were like emergencies. Yeah.
but they're not, according, and it's true. Mine was the registration. The first month I think
Oh.
it was a new car. My old registration was $60, right? And my old 2006 Toyota Corolla.
Mm.
So I saw the bill since February, but of course I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't prepare for it. And Mariela was like, whoa, this is a lot. Like, what is this? I was like, that's my registration. And she's like, oh, you didn't prepare for it? I was like, no, I'm going to pay it all right now. Because if I don't, it's going to go up like $200. So I also thought that was part of savings, but in a different way. I thought of it like you, Cindy, like, okay, no, it's coming, but I'm not really doing anything about it.
Yeah, so those
Yeah.
things are things that you prepare for, right? So those are different savings accounts that you can
Mhm.
create, and then we call those sinking funds. So, like for my car, maybe I'm gonna save 500 a month, right? For transportation, that's what I'm gonna budget every month, but it's not necessarily just gas. So maybe 300 of that is gas, but I know I'm gonna need those extra $200 for oil changes, for um, registration, car insurance, just so when I get the bill, I'm already saving for that. It's already part of my monthly budget. And that makes it easier than like, oh my God, in 2 months, I need to have $700. That's a lot of money. For me, it's easier just to incorporate it into my monthly budget. And that way, I don't really feel the weight of it. Because if you don't save that, then $300 in 1 month, that can be a lot, and that's
Mhm.
gonna
Yeah.
maybe affect the other parts of your budget. You don't want anything to throw
And
you
then the
off
next
a lot.
month.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then
yeah,
it'll
yeah,
affect
yeah.
your next month. Yeah.
It will. So
Would
yeah, those
you,
are separate.
Mariela, would you consider then like that another bucket, like a automobile bucket, like a car bucket, and then the emergency fund bucket, and then like a traveling, because you use the words buckets a lot, which I loved.
Mhm.
But so would you put money like out of your check into that, whatever you, I guess, budgeted for, put it into that bucket, regardless of whether you spend it or not? You put it in that bucket, right? And then you don't touch it?
Yeah. So let's say I do the 500, right, for transportation, and then every month is different. So um, one month I might spend 200 on gas, another month 300. So whatever is left over, I can't
Mhm.
say, oh, I have an extra 200 that I didn't use for transportation. No, like I already budgeted those 500, and
Don't touch
whatever is
it.
left goes into the transportation fund. So either you can have little envelopes in your house and just write on it like car, and then just put the cash in there.
Mhm.
But you have to take it, like I would take it out of my checking account, just so that I don't see it in there and think I have extra money. So at the end of the month, if I have 200 left over, I'm cashing out those 200 and I'm putting them in envelopes, or um, I'm putting it into my bucket. So we've talked about Ally Bank. There's so many high yield savings accounts, and I think that's where everybody should have their emergency fund. So I do Ally Bank because it just works for me in regards to the buckets that you're talking about. So I can have my
Mhm.
emergency fund, but um, I can also have buckets under that, which are separate accounts. And I can even pull from my bank. Like I can, like for my travel fund, I automatically um, just get it out of my bank, whatever it may be. If I'm doing 200 a month, then every month they're taking out 200 from my checking and they're putting it in my travel bucket. Transportation is a
Mm.
little different. So that one I will wait till the end of the month just to see where I'm at.
Mhm.
Yeah, because it's hard to say I'm only gonna do 300 gas like that. You can't predict that, you know. Yeah, and then right now with
Right.
prices going crazy, so yeah, I wish I could have a number for set for gas, but that's just doesn't work for me.
Mhm.
So that usually at the
Mhm.
end of the month I'll just transfer it over. But you're right, yeah, I have these buckets because again, it keeps it out of my checking account and it just helps me save. Yeah, even for health. You know, we have really bad teeth in my family. So I know like there's always going to be something with a dentist. That's definitely like when we talk about fear and money, the dentist is it for me. Just
Mhm.
because we have bad teeth, we have
Oh
bad
yeah.
genes, you know, we're going to need it all. Like I have 3 kids, they're all going to need braces, they're all going to have root canals. So like I already know I'm going to need a lot of money for that. So I just
Yeah.
automate
It's
money
better
for
to be
that.
prepared.
Yeah.
And I
The
I
And not
like
to
that.
Mhm.
say,
Sorry.
yeah, sorry, not to say that I'm always gonna have like, oh, you know, I'm gonna have the exact amount saved up. Like, no, I'm not saying that, but it's better to get $1,000 bill and have 800 versus getting a
Oh
thousand
yeah.
dollar bill and having nothing.
Mhm.
You know, at least you'll be
Mhm.
like, oh, I only have to come up with 200. Like, I can totally do that. You
Mhm.
know, just like you did,
Yeah.
Jessica, with your registration that you were talking about.
Yeah.
So,
And I like that term buckets because I also had like never really heard it, but when you put it in perspective for me, so like once my one of my buckets is filled, like I already have like 4 others that I want to start preparing and start utilizing that money. So I'm gonna stop putting in my emergency fund and then start utilizing in whatever three, like top 3 that are my priorities. And one of them for sure is travel because I love to travel. And to me, when I would travel, I would kind of use my last like 2, 3 paychecks to pay for the trip when I should be preparing months in advance. So I like that term buckets. It just gives us more cushion like around us as opposed to like just one big pillow, you know?
yeah, I mean, and you can also even have like if it's over $1,000, then I'm gonna get it from my emergency fund, you know, like just have different, like everybody's life is different. So just but also like in talking about the emergency fund, a lot of people that I work with, they feel horrible when they have to get money from their emergency fund. You know, they just I don't know. It's just like it hits them hard. And I'm just like, no, like that's what it's there for. You know, you used your emergency fund for exactly what it had to be used. So you should actually feel really proud because you didn't get into debt. and you had saved up this money, which takes a lot of work, and it's hard when you're not used to saving just to save when there's no emergency, and you're just
Yeah.
looking at that money. But yeah, your emergency fund is there for you to use when life happens. And that's for,
You you explained when we're talking about emergency funds and buckets, you explained that when you get your paycheck, the money, each bucket, so each amount of money is designated into something, either rent or house expenses like utilities or your car, or like you said, your dentist, your emergency fund. And so I think that's another very cool tactic, because just for me, like my brain, like it was so easy to say, oh, so then once you get your check, don't just leave it there because it just goes, right? Like
Mhm.
when we don't, every $1, and I don't even spend like that. Like I pride myself in not spending money, and it still disappears. Like, where did it go? And so now if I designate each dollar to, like, this is going to gas and I'm not going to
Mhm.
touch it, it's just going to cars, or this is just going to, whatever, the dentist or whatever, the gym, then I'm prepared for it ahead of time. And my money has, each amount of, like, my check has somewhere to be.
Mhm.
It's not even like the extra money could be to like a fun, right? Like a fun time, or just miscellaneous, like doing fun stuff. Like you can designate a bucket for that. And I
Mhm.
just thought that was like cool and practical.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
so
the
thanks for
buckets, I
showing us
think,
that.
are not, you're welcome. The buckets, you don't want to think of your bucket as like your budget, it's separate. So like I think from what I hear you saying right now, you're talking more like your budget, like your for the gym, like those are things that would you're gonna have in your budget, right? The emergency fund is separate and your
Mhm.
buckets are separate, but they're kind of under your emergency fund. Um, and you do want to automate those. But that's kind of money, like what you want to have in your high yield savings account, like with your emergency fund and under, like your buckets are things that aren't monthly. Because if something
Mm,
is a monthly, then you want to have that in your checking and you want to have that as part of your budget. Um, so what you would take money out from your checking and put it in your buckets would be things that are coming up that you kind of want to save up for. It could be if you own a home, then it's your property taxes, unless you pay them like monthly with your mortgage. Or
mhm,
it can be your car insurance, like something that's like once a year. Even like subscription fees, like some of them are once a year, like Costco, Amazon Prime. Um, those are what you can, so you can have a bucket for subscriptions, you can have a
Mhm.
bucket for transportation. If you know you're gonna do some upgrades in your house, you can even have a home repair
mhm,
budget, but don't go crazy with the
mhm.
budgets either. Like some people will come up with 20 and it's like, no, no. No, we don't need that many. You wanna keep your finances really simple.
Mhm.
Like don't make them complicated because
Mhm.
you don't want to feel like, oh, like it's daunting, like it's too much.
Mhm.
And it's too much to keep up with, if you have too many buckets. So just really like be picky, like maybe your top three. And again, like what are your values? Like what is it
Okay.
that you love? Like Jess, you love travel. So if you love travel, then that's something you definitely have to save for
Mhm.
because your money, you work so hard for it. You want to have these experiences. You want to do stuff that you want to do too, even if you're in debt.
Mhm.
You're still alive. And yeah, you're in debt and you have to pay it off, but it doesn't mean that everything has to stop because of that. You know,
Mhm.
you can still have things to look forward to. Um, yeah, you can still do all that. So yeah, it's the budget, which would be probably like that money would be like in your checking. Um, Cindy, definitely what you said about automated payments, you want that. Like, I think it's easier to automate than to go in there monthly and transfer money. Um, if you put
Mhm.
everything to work, then you're really gonna be, it's just gonna be routine. It's gonna be easy. Like I'm gonna save 100 for travel every month. I'm going to
Mhm.
start saving for Christmas. That's another bucket.
Mhm.
And I do have that bucket because I know that, I have, like I said, I have three kids. I have teachers. And even though you don't want to spend a lot, um, I do like enjoy Christmas and I enjoy giving. So it's something that I do want to save up for because I remember
Mhm.
just being so stressed out when I never used to save for it. And
Mhm.
then yeah, it was just, I would get sad because I just would run out of money, and I would not be able to give
Yeah.
people that I wanted to give gifts to. So it's
Mhm.
just kind of like planning ahead, and
Mm-hmm.
automating it out. And you can change it every month. Like I
Yeah.
think one thing we talk about in your budget is your budget changes, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Every month it could look different and that's totally normal. And that's why it's called a monthly budget because it's not a yearly budget because it's going to change every month. So you can go in there. It's so easy to change like what you want to contribute to your buckets, even from month to month, because life
Right.
happens, or maybe you can send more certain months, maybe less other months. Like summer, a lot of kids go to summer camp. A lot of, people need childcare during summer, and that's so expensive. So maybe in the summer months, a lot of people can't send anything, or have to reduce
Mhm.
it to like $20, but it's something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So
Good
before
points.
we move on, you said, so there's the budget. So there's a difference between the budget and the buckets. So the budget is more like whatever you have left over, put that money in some buckets, right? Not your budget.
We don't want to
Okay.
think about it like what's left over because we want it's not what's left over because we're paying ourselves first, right? So when we say you're paying
Mhm.
yourself first, that means that you are paying towards your safety, security, all that stuff, which means your emergency fund, um, and your buckets. you
Mm-hmm.
know, that's first. And then so let me break it down better. So your basic essentials, your necessities, that would be first, right? You need a roof, you need food, you need light, your utilities, you need transportation. So that would go first, right? You budget for that. And then you're going to do what you're going to pay yourself first with, which is your buckets and your emergency fund, your debt, your investments. Those would go. What's left over is going to be your giving. If you'd like to give gifts, things that are not that you don't need to survive, you know? So you're giving your entertainment, fun money, that's your leftover.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I would kind of do it in that order.
Yeah, that's a
Okay.
good breakdown to be mindful of because when I do my budget, I have like the important stuff, the not so important stuff, and then like the the leisure kind of stuff. And I remember one time I went to Target and I overspent. And then you're like, well, what did you buy? And I was like, I know it's not even important. It was like $80. And I went in for like one thing, like always. And I'm like, this is why. And I remember telling you in the beginning, like, there's no need for me to ever go to Target. And I cracked. And you reminded me, you're like, oh, it's fine. Like we all make poor choices sometimes, but it's okay.
You know
Just
what,
get back
though?
on it.
This is why I love, like, the best thing out of the pandemic was the drive up thing where they bring you your stuff to the
Oh,
car,
yes.
especially at Target. And then even like food delivery, because I love like you go to the market and you're like, oh my God, this is new. I want to try it, and then you're like off your list already. But yeah, like Target, it's just easy. Everything looks
I
so
know.
pretty, everything, you think you need everything. But the drive up, oh man.
I know. That's golden when you're budgeting. You're right.
That's
One of my secrets of when I go to Target is not to get any, like, don't get a cart or a basket.
Oh girl,
Oh,
you
that's
teach
such
me.
a
Jessica, you're
good one.
laughing,
I
but that saved
know.
me from getting worse credit. Well,
That's such a
when I
good
studied
tip.
like the psychology around grocery stores or like stores like that, like it's 100% meant to create for you to spend more. And so it's just like, don't get a cart because the carts are huge. And so you're like, I'm just going to fill this up with a few stuff. And it's like $120. Or even like the little, it could be makeup. It doesn't have to be like big stuff, you know, like in the little, but it's like, if I'm just going there for toothpaste or face wash, I don't need any, my two hands can hold them. And then here, me and my daughter are like going around Target, but it's uncomfortable. So hopefully it helps to spend less. So,
I like
So
that
uncomfortable
idea.
filling up that little basket. I think I've done that, and I think I messed up my arm for life because I tried the basket, like going along with what you're saying, right? Where if I take the little basket, maybe like I won't get a whole
and
bunch
then
of
you're
stuff.
like,
But yeah, right. Oh my God, no. And I'm like, it
yeah.
doesn't even go on your shoulder, so you have to carry it like in the middle
Huh?
part, like this tender, like
You're
the
like, I'm good.
weak spot. I feel like I want to even put it on my head, but that's a good point.
That's a good one. I know, Cindy. I
That's
was
true.
laughing because that's such a good advice, but I'm almost there where I don't need Target.
I don't think
Yeah.
I'll ever be there. I don't know.
I just, it's like I'm still too weak and vulnerable. Like I can't confidently like go shopping there without like caving.
Now my mom doesn't like going shopping with me because I'm very like, no, mom, that's what they want you to do. You only needed sandals. And she's like, oh my God, I don't like coming with you. And so like, it's just when you're with me where I'm like, did you need that? Or my daughter, she's like, can I get something? And I'm like, we're getting food for you. But kids don't see it that way. And I had to start breaking down all the bills. And she's 5. So she just kind of like walks away at one point. And I'm like, do you know who pays the bills? Do you know how much rent is? And then, because I want to teach her to be financially and she's like, I don't know what that means. What's rent? But anyway,
We have to talk about that,
that's
Cindy,
what I'm having a rough.
because I recently,
Yeah.
because I think the pandemic made, because we would never really, we were always like going to the park, we were always going out, but with the pandemic, we were home a lot. So I started buying them toys
Mhm.
because I felt like they needed to, there was only so much to do when we were home, when we couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So they became very like, buy me this, buy me that. So I was like,
Mhm.
what can I do? So I started giving them an allowance. And I told them that I would cover their basic
Oh, very good.
essentials, right? I would get them shoes if they need
Like
shoes,
food and water.
food and water. But I even then, because you know how sometimes you go out to eat and they're like, I don't want that. And then
Mhm.
you're like, okay, so should we go somewhere else or whatever? So I said, you know what, even with that. So I said, with your money, I go, you can, if you don't want to eat where we're eating, then if you want me to take you somewhere, you have to buy it with your own money. And then even toys, even like anything. Like, but I'm telling you, I am really
Mhm.
surprised to see like they've become very conscious now, of like their spending because now it's their
Oh,
money.
that's
And I
awesome.
also felt like, dang,
Right.
they don't even really, they're not appreciating like their toys. They just play with them
Mhm.
for 10 minutes and then I'm
Mhm.
done. And I was like, okay.
Mhm.
So now, yeah, they have to buy their own stuff and even gifts for like their friends.
Oh, that's good.
And I
Yeah,
don't
that's
Yeah,
a good
that's
idea.
good.
I
I want to
really
start doing that too.
like with my little one, she was 5 when we started. That's why I'm like, wait, she's 5.
Mhm.
Um, and
Yes.
she's the one that has the most money. Like she'll be like if the other ones want Starbucks, she'll be like, no, I'm okay. Like, because I want to have like
Dang, that was Eloy.
I want to have a lot of, or
One of
I'm saving, and I'm like saving, okay.
yeah. My brother Eloy, the one who edits our videos, he would always have like little stashes. And me and my other brother, we would like, if we had $1, we're like, where can we spend this? And even to this day, I think he might have like the best credit out of all of us. And I'm like,
Yeah.
where does that come from? Like, no one told him to do this,
I
but he was always
know.
like, I don't want that. I just want to eat. And I'm like, I want that willpower, And now, like, I'm getting it as an adult, but he was like that since he was little.
I know. He has
He bargained a lot.
I think he has a credit score of 1,000, which I've never even heard of. So Eloy, kudos to you, bro. He started at like 10 having credit.
That's crazy.
No, I'm just kidding. No, but he is really good. I agree with Cindy.
That's good. No, I
Mhm.
mean,
So
yeah.
that's a good one. Maybe that's a good topic for like our part 3. where it's just like how to bring financial literacy to kids, right? Because if
Yeah.
we're learning, how
At
can we
this
translate that? And
age.
I think that's so important, and I wouldn't know how to. So I think like if you gave me tips on how you do it, I think that's a like part two. That's one of your business buckets. I feel like I would definitely like
Yeah,
look for
no,
mentorship
I
from you.
feel like
So
I'm learning a lot, and I've just been like paying attention, and I'm just like, I think this is working, because my thing is I
yeah,
just want them to value, because for every dollar to me is like blood, like sweat, it's just I
yeah.
just see it as like that. Somebody worked really hard for that.
Mhm.
And I don't think that they understand that. And I don't want to make them feel bad about it. Like I want them to see money as a positive thing, but I
Mhm.
also want them to see that
Mhm.
um that there's value to that. And whatever you get, make sure that it makes you really happy, make sure that it's worth it, because I think those are the choices you have to make as an adult. You can't really even if you're rich, you can't really have everything. You always have to make choices. So, yeah, I would love to talk about that. I'm not even going to talk about it anymore because we could just even get stuck there because
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but
That's a good
that
one.
really could be
That's a
another.
really good one. So our last week's topic was on this clinical psychologist that I really love. His name is Jordan Peterson.
Mhm.
And he talks a lot about like mental discipline. And so you said like to teach the kids that there's value in it. And for me, it's almost the same thing, but I word it as like it's financial discipline, or it's right now she's 5, so she's and she goes back and forth between like mom and dad, and we have different lifestyles, right? And so I try to be empathetic, but one of the things right now she's like she wants more sugar because sugar is addicting. And if she goes on like a 3-day sugar binge and then she comes back with mom, I get it, she's still craving it. And so I'm trying to teach her, and it's so hard for a 5-year-old, so I'm not expecting her to be like successful at this, but to say like, look, when you get to have sugar, like enjoy it and do your thing. But there comes a time where we have to control what goes into our body. And I'm practicing like that mental discipline in myself, like what I eat. And so for me, it would be like financial discipline and like just, so I got this quote
I've
and it
never
says
heard
it's from the
of that.
Jocko Willink.
Okay.
What?
I'm sorry. I'm resonating right now. That financial discipline. I like it.
Right? And that's what you're doing
I'm gonna,
to like us.
I've never
Yeah.
heard that. Okay, I want to hear your quote.
That
Okay,
should
the
be your
quote is
slogan.
from, yeah. So, okay.
Sorry.
The quote is, if you want to be financially free, you have to have financial discipline. And so, do you guys know who Jocko Willink is?
I
He's
don't.
like a former Navy SEAL person, and he has his
Oh,
own.
the guy you always talk
um,
about?
I mean, he's one of the guys I talk about.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
I know who. You've showed
So
me him. Mhm.
how about, yeah. So he's another one that he talks a lot about financial discipline. He's a former Navy SEAL, and he does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he just talks a lot about mental discipline. And so he said this quote, like, in order to be financially free, you have to be financially disciplined. And so I just wanted to bring that up to you because I'm like, oh, I'm going to write this down so I can, like share it with Mariela,
I
because
love that.
that's how I feel right now. Like I'm working towards that freedom of, I have control of my budget. Even if it is debt, I know that I'm taking care of it. There's a plan for it.
Yeah, and I think the way you view life and even money, like I think last time we were talking about, like you mentioned a lot how you don't spend, right? And
Mm,
we talked about frugality or with versus being cheap, and I
Mhm.
just think like you're
yeah.
frugal, I don't think you're cheap. And I think like to me that's discipline. Like that's financial discipline because when you're frugal, you're choosing to spend your money on things that you really value, you know? Um,
Mhm.
and that's why it's kind of like I just want people to do that mental shift of I'm not giving anything up, I'm not sacrificing. Like I think those are like
Right.
strong words that make people not want to even consider working
Mhm.
on their finances. They just want to like they think they're free. People already think they're free because they don't budget, because they just swipe, they just spend. But that's
Right.
not freedom to me. That's kind of like reckless. So, it's that I like the financial discipline aspect of it because in life, we do have to be disciplined all the time, like if we weren't, then there would be a lot more like rage road incidents. There would
Mhm.
be, you know, we wouldn't
Right.
be able to keep our mouth shut, if somebody tells us something at work, like we would
Right.
just lash out. It takes discipline to just like, and the same thing with money, like yeah, you really that's okay. When you say financial discipline, I think the opposite of that is being in I think is being impulsive. Like the
Mhm.
person that wants something and buys it
Mhm.
at that moment, you know? Um, Discipline to me would be, hey, you know what? Why don't you like sit with that, maybe wait like a week. And then if
Mhm.
you really want it, then if you still feel the same way, then get it if you can, right?
Mhm.
Or even like
Mhm.
financial discipline is saving for it versus like, let me get it on my credit card. Even a week later, I don't have the money for that trip, but I want it. So, um, discipline would be, you know what, I'm going to save for it. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
how I took that quote. I like it.
me too. I'm
Yeah.
still working towards mastering that. I'm in progress of it, but I agree, Cindy. I think we're on the same journey in trying to be more financially disciplined.
Hmm. But you guys, it's
Absolutely.
a lifelong journey. I
Correct.
think I always
Right.
said to you, like, um, my budget, like I'm still, I mean, I still monthly feel like I'm going and I'm moving money around. I make my budget the week before the new month and then I have my number set. But then once you're in it, things come up. And as much as you want to try to stay like, oh, but I only budgeted 800 for food and I'm at 850, I don't know. But I'm very forgiving. I don't really even think dwell on that. It's like, it's just gonna change. My thing, and even with my clients that I work with, when to them they feel like they blew their budget, I say, did you use a credit card? And they're like, no. Like, did you use your emergency fund for that non-emergency? And they're like, no. Then what is wrong with that? There's nothing wrong
Mhm.
with what you did. Like it's just
Yeah.
being human.
Mhm.
So it really is that. It's just really like not getting into that credit card debt and not getting into that emergency fund. And then also like maybe, yeah, just we have to be a lot easier on ourselves.
I like it.
So I wanted to ask one last thing because we're already running out of time and I'm like, we haven't even got to the everything. But it's okay because that just means, Mariela, that you might have to pay us another visit. Who knows? We'll see
Yay.
where we're at. Hopefully though. Yeah.
I'll try to answer more
Um,
briefly too, so we can get more in today
Mhm.
if we can.
okay. What are the different ways of investing your money?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably one of my financial goals is to get into investments. Like a dream of mine would be like to own an Airbnb sometime down in the, but I like to be like hands-on, to be like, guys, we're having breakfast at 9. I want everyone down here at 9. No, I'm just playing. But just the business aspect. And then also like I like the idea of buying real estate and then having it work for you. But I wanted to ask you like what are the different, because real estate is one of many. And I wanted to kind of pick your brain on like a beginner's conversation on investments.
Okay, well, I would say real estate would be not a beginner start. I think real estate is
Mhm.
I think real estate is one of the most profitable investments, but it's also the hardest one to get into because you need a lot of capital to start. So you need money because you just need, if you're going to buy a physical property, you need it. I mean, if it's an investment, you want to give at least 20%. Even if you're buying for yourself, you want to just think of that 20% down. And I think this is where people may see it differently. Like when we were just talking about debt too, I think some debt is good, So even if you're like, I just want to get started, I have no debt, but I don't have enough saved, then it's like, hey man, maybe I'll consider borrowing, enough to purchase
Mm,
a property, to get started, right? And to have enough to carry me until I'm ready um to open it up, for rent.
mhm,
So
mhm,
yeah, so I think anything is possible and you have to consider all options. Um, but if you want to start investing, like I think the easiest thing to do would be, um, but even your emergency fund, we could start there. Your emergency fund to me is
mm,
a little like investing. I mean, I wouldn't call it an investment,
mm.
but if you have it in a high yield savings account, you're earning money on it every month. Right now it's really low, it's
Mm,
0.5%, but it could be like $1 a day, that you're earning, just for having your money there. And it adds up,
mm.
it's something. So you can end up with $30
Yeah.
every quarter. So to me, you're earning money. So to me, that's an investment.
Mhm.
But also like your
Mm,
work, a lot of people don't see it as investment, but your retirement is investment because it's money that's
mm,
growing over time. And I think people just don't see it like investments because you have to wait to get it, or else you're going to get a penalty. But I think that there's some incentives there for if you for first time home buyers, if they want to get their money out. Um, some programs, I don't know what the law is now, but I know a few years ago, a few people who pulled from the retirement to purchase their first home, and they didn't have a penalty. They just had to pay it back. But you're paying yourself.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like that is not a bad idea, you know? So
mhm,
it's just again about being informed,
Mhm.
but a lot of, but yeah, so your retirement is also a way to invest. And you definitely want to do the match. This is something I've talked to both of you about. And I know you're young, so you guys are kind of like, no,
mhm,
like you just don't see retirement in your future when you're young.
Mhm.
But let me tell you, like it hits you. You're like, whoa, like I feel like between 20 and 40, you're a different person than when you turn 40. All of a sudden, and when you turn 40, you never want to work again, or you feel confident to pursue your dreams, and if you have no money, then it's like, dang it, I should have started saving when I was
mhm,
30. So that's why I say, like, don't worry about how you're feeling right now. Just start investing. So that's an easy way too. And then that is automated. Like just like we talked about automating to your emergency fund, you can get it automated from your check. And that honestly, you don't even notice like $100, $200 missing from there. Um, and you set it and forget it. But also like other things that are super inexpensive, um, are like index funds, ETFs, and those you get through a brokerage account. So the three most affordable brokerage companies would be like Vanguard. Vanguard's a nonprofit, and the founder of Vanguard actually invented the index funds. There's Fidelity and there's Schwab, and those are popular in the sense that they're very low fees. Um, and those are passive. You set it, you forget it, and you can start with, I mean, $80, $20. That's a thing too that people think it's just, I need a lot of money or I need to um, be on top of that. And you don't. You just need to purchase something. And then um, the thing with investing, how you make money is by just giving it time, letting it sit, and to keep investing in it too. Um, so there's different ways to start, but I would say those are a few of the ways you can start. Um, but just start.
Mhm.
Yeah, just start. I
right.
mean, it takes a few minutes to open your brokerage account. Um, but again, it goes back to the paying yourself. It's time to put yourself first, and take the time to do this because time flies. And
Mhm.
next thing you know, it's been a year and you've been saying you're going to start investing this whole year and you haven't. So this is where I think I talked to you about this, or even to maybe to both of you, but one thing that I like to do is just have financial dates,
Mhm,
which is every week, I'm going to set time aside to work on my finances.
mhm,
And I know exactly what I'm going to do that week. Um, and sometimes it's really like, what, this week I'm just going to read. There's this book that I've been wanting to read. So I'm going to read for 30 minutes, a book on financial literacy. So, the more I learn, the more that I become aware that the people that are wealthy are people that actually spend time on their finances. Um,
mhm.
because if you don't, then you're part of the rat race. You're just working, getting paid, spending, working, getting paid, spending, and then you don't have anything to your name, you know? So you have to be super intentional. But once I kept reading, like the wealthy are um, spending a lot of time just kind of working on their personal finance. And that could be an hour a month, 2 hours a month. That could be a lot of time. Um, but it's worth it for me. And my goal, I just want to see how far I can go. I'm like, could I be wealthy one day? So I'm going to do what the wealthy do so that
Yeah.
I can be part of that crew, you know? Um, but if you don't spend any time, really, it's really hard to start anything.
Mhm.
So,
I'm,
what,
yeah.
go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm happy that you said like start, but then also you said this is what other people that are financially wealthy do. And anytime I'm looking for mentorship in whatever aspect of my life, it's that I always get that message of if you see someone, for example, that's physically fit like what you want to be, get to know them, have them mentor you, or study. Maybe it's someone online, right? Like on YouTube or something. It's like study what their habits are in order to get this type of body. Or like you said, wealthy. Um, like when I have looked for mentors in the past, it always was like, okay, this person seems happy in their life, like I want to get to that level of stability. They just carry themselves with grace. That has to mean that they put in work in like you said. So like if you're learning about financial literacy, you're taking that time to read books on, even just if it's like how to save or the basics of budgeting. Like that's a good point. And we always end with solutions. So I'm glad that you mentioned that towards this part. So the other thing that I wanted to say was to encourage other people to seek out people like Mariela, who are finance coaches. There's a lot of online mentorship. There's a lot of like online classes. And so I think we attracted you into like our energy because we were ready and you were ready. You had started your little side business on doing this stuff. And it was just kind of like a magnet. And I think when you're ready to do whatever it is that you want, eat healthier, start saving, go to therapy, like there's endless amounts of things. Once you feel like, okay, I really want to do this, I'm ready, those opportunities come and then you got to like
Mhm.
grab them. Like we grabbed onto you and we're like, oh, we got to suck the knowledge out of this person because we're ready. Right. And it's just like passing that on. So thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thank
And
you.
I definitely, you guys, I don't know. I don't know anybody like you guys, I feel, that just really love to learn. And I love how you guys in the podcast are always telling Cindy that she loves all these people because, and she's always quoting people, but that just tells me like you love to learn, and so do I, and I think that's why we gravitated towards each other, because we both want to be, we all, like the three of us want to be better, right?
Mhm.
Just in every aspect of our lives. And I think you
Right.
guys prove it every week with just how transparent you are, and you talk about everything you're working on. Um, Great moms, I mean, hard workers. So I love spending
Yeah.
time with you guys, and I'm learning so much from you guys too, for
Yay.
sure.
Thank you.
Aw. Well, thank you so much for coming back on. We hope so much that you're able to come back on and you can be our finance person, because I feel like the community needs to hear it. We need to hear it. And it's a part of self-care and self-respect, I feel, to be disciplined with your finances and to just have a plan. Even like you said, even if you have debt, once you have a plan, you're working towards fixing the problem. And so thank you guys so much for listening. Thanks for coming on. And we hope you have a great weekend. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you, Mariela, so much. You're one of our favorite primas, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you,
Bye,
guys.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.